With Ben Powers headed to injured reserve, how will the Denver Broncos fix the new hole in their pretty successful offensive line? What were the best and maybe potentially concerning parts about the Avalanche's dominant season opening win against the Los Angeles Kings? And has Nathan MacKinnon potentially already cemented himself in a pretty significant way among some elite NHL company? All things to come on today's rundown, but we begin with a special shout out to our friends at Denver Regenerative Medicine. Guys, if weight loss has been a struggle, it's time for something real. At Denver Regenerative Medicine, they use full-strength GLP-1 medications with doctor oversight. You can start today with a free consultation and get real results for under $300 a month. Book now at denverregen.com. And with that, we have to begin today's show with the dominant, forceful showing by the Colorado Avalanche in their season opener against the LA Kings 30 years to the day after Colorado first visited the Forum in Inglewood for their very first game on the road since relocating from Quebec to Colorado. So kind of an interesting anniversary there for the Avalanche. And it became a pretty historic night for one particular player in Nathan MacKinnon. But as a team, man, I talked about it with Will Peterson yesterday. The one thing I wanted to see was the Avalanche get off to faster starts, especially offensively, and not play this waiting game where they're seeming to feel out the opposing goaltender, who in this case was Stanley Cup champion and former Colorado Avalanche goaltender Darcy Kemper, and really get back to the way that they felt during the Cup run, where they were just so relentless offensively and keeping that puck in the O zone, preventing the other team from coming up for air at any point because of how dominant they were on the forecheck and putting the puck on the net. And for the first 8 minutes or so of the first period, it felt similar to how we'd seen it a lot of last season, something I wasn't hoping for. But man, a switch seemed to flip right around that 8 to 10 minute mark in the first period. All of a sudden, the momentum shifted. It felt like the ice tilted slightly in the Avalanche's favor. And that second period, they never looked back. Nathan MacKinnon had a pretty historic night. Marty Necas, the Marty Party, was alive and well. He comes away with 2 goals, one early and one late on a power play to help the Avalanche seal a game that was never truly in doubt, in my opinion, once the puck started to roll. But that wasn't really some of the other highlights or takeaways that I took from that I found that were really encouraging. Gabe Landeskog playing his first season opener since October of 2021 and his first regular season game since early March of 2022. I thought he looked pretty good overall. And another note that I found encouraging and something that I'm going to continue to monitor throughout the course of the 2025 season, Gabe Landeskog played 90 seconds of ice time late in that game during the second period or the third period. 90 seconds, because the game was pretty well in hand and didn't have to worry too much about mixing him in. And I think that is going to be something that Jared Bednar and company look to when it comes to quote unquote managing Gabe Landeskog's regular season load over the course of an 82 game season. Not as much he's going to be up and down for certain games, because I do expect Gabe to play north of 75, 77, probably 80 regular season games, barring any kind of injury, knock on marble, as Jake Shapiro pointed out. But I could see them managing minutes the way that they did in terms of ice time for Gabe Landeskog within a game to help maybe ease that burden. Sam Malinsky getting on the board, Arturi Lehkonen, obviously the two by Necas. And how about the hit that Josh Manson laid on Fogle, which drew Jeff Malott to drop the gloves and take exception with Josh Manson, whose hit was perfectly legal by the NHL book. But man, talk about a physical statement. And of course, you see Gabe Landeskog kind of skirting around, just almost just begging to get on the action, to the point where not only did I, but the broadcast crew was also trying to foreshadow we might see Gabe mix it up a little bit later in response to some of that. And by the way, the broadcast made a big deal of Jeff's brother, Mike Malott, being a UFC fighter. Mike can come catch those hands too, to be honest with you, because Josh Manson came to play. I thought it was a great physical tone setter type of game for the Avalanche. They played with pace. They played with speed. Nathan MacKinnon's speed and grace on the ice was on full display. Marty Necas showing the goal-scoring ability that he's going to be able to bring to the Avalanche, riding shotgun alongside Nathan MacKinnon, who was described on the television broadcast by the crew as not necessarily who you think of as a playmaker. Didn't agree with that statement at all. But, it's the first game of the season. You got to work out the kinks a little bit, I suppose. And then defensively, strong showing, I thought, from the Avs across the board, top to bottom with all of their pairings. Thought it was nice to see Brent Burns out there. And I really actually enjoyed something that I didn't really think was going to be a big thing coming into the season or wasn't really on my radar, was mixing in Sam Malinsky on the top line, splitting up Cale Makar and Devon Taves to spread out the talent and maybe get Malinsky more used to playing on the opposite side, which he's having to do now. And I think that that's something that could be a tool that the Avalanche continue to utilize in order to spread the talent and the depth along their defensive pairings, something that's been a little bit of a highlighter issue for them in the past, especially as you get into that third, deeper pairing. And it seemed to work out okay. I certainly don't consider the LA Kings as any kind of slouch team. In fact, they were fantastic at home last season in terms of the entirety of the NHL season. And so I thought this was a really big statement, tone-setting win for the Colorado Avalanche. If they can maintain that kind of offensive intensity that they picked up from basically the second half of the first period through that second period, because the third period was kind of a penalty fest. If they can keep that kind of offensive intensity, this team is going to be a wagon for the rest of the NHL and that Central Division to have to stop in the Western Conference. And defensively, if they are working to maybe split up the pairings a little bit, spread out the talent of Makar and Taves, who are, in my mind, dollars to donuts, the best top-line defensive pairing in the NHL. And if they can get away with mixing that up, giving some different looks, helping Malinsky out as he makes some transitions to his game, I'm a big fan of that. And yeah, if Marty Necas, with a full offseason after coming in during the Mikko Rantanen trade in January of last season, if Marty Necas can be that kind of shotgun rider for Nathan MacKinnon, this Colorado Avalanche team is going to be tough to stop. And I know it's just one game and there's 81 more to go, and there's going to be plenty of ups and downs on the roller coaster. But man, I couldn't have been happier with the overall first team impression of the Colorado Avalanche. I guess if I had to, I'd say I didn't love getting off one shot on their opening power play attempt. We know the power play was a critical, back-breaking issue for them in the postseason series against the Dallas Stars last year, and at times throughout the course of the regular season. I really liked Gavin Brindley's appearance on the fourth line. I love the Colorado Avalanche's fourth line so much. Normally it's Logan O'Connor who's just leading that charge for me. Obviously, he is dealing with some injuries to start the season, and we'll probably see him closer to Thanksgiving and probably Christmas. But Gavin Brindley being a young player to flash and pop on that fourth line, Jack Drury and Victor Olofsson on the third line, looking to make some positive impressions. And again, just keeping the pace quick and sharp and fast. I thought the passing was pretty crisp. The Avalanche had a bad offsides call that prevented them from a great 3-on-1 opportunity that could have blown the game open even further. And yeah, the power play unit probably still has a ways to go, but I like Gabe Landeskog being a presence on the second power play unit. And I think that if they can shore up that portion of special teams, it's going to become pretty difficult to find weak spots within this roster game to game, week to week, as they progress through the course of their season. I would be remiss if we didn't specifically spend some time talking about Nathan MacKinnon, whose historic milestone is going to be something that I think draws some more conversation leading into the early portion of this season, and honestly going to be something we keep tabs on throughout to see how far MacKinnon could stretch some of these records. He recorded his 1,016th and eventually 1,017th with his second assist to the game point, making him the franchise leader. No one that has worn a Colorado Avalanche sweater has accumulated more points for the Avs than Nathan MacKinnon. He breaks the tie and then passes Joe Sakic, who held that honor before with 1,015 points over the course of 870 games. It took Nathan MacKinnon 871 to move past that. And if you look at the breakdown there, you can see pretty similar in terms of a spread between goals and assists. Slight edge to Sakic in the goal department, slight edge to MacKinnon, the non-playmaker, in the assists department. basically virtually the same amount of games. But what's going to make this fascinating is Nathan MacKinnon is nowhere near, in my opinion, close to the end or done with his Avalanche career. He's got north of 10, 11, 12 seasons in the NHL as of this point. Sakic played for 20 total in the NHL. He had a pretty significant lead in with the Quebec Nordiques, where he recorded 626 points before ever donning an Avalanche sweater. So Nathan MacKinnon now being the sole leader in the points tallying category for the Colorado Avalanche specifically, I think is going to be significant, because we're going to enter a conversation pretty soon asking ourselves what, if anything, Nathan MacKinnon has left to do in order to cement himself pretty firmly as the greatest player in Colorado Avalanche history. Joe Sakic, as a two-time Cup winner with a Conn Smythe and a Hart Trophy and a Ted Lindsay Award and a Lady Byng with multiple All-Star appearances, holds that mantle pretty firmly right now. But I got to tell you what, when you start stacking resumes, Nathan MacKinnon's got a Cup. Nathan MacKinnon's got a Hart Trophy. Nathan MacKinnon's got a Ted Lindsay Award and a Lady Byng, very important. And he's a multi-time All-Star. He's now the franchise leader in points accumulated. And he's going to continue. He's going to continue to bury that record by the end of the season. He'll be north of 1,100, working toward 1,200 points by the end of this season. And then the next season, and the next season, and the next season. So I've floated the question around the office. I've floated to you, our listeners and our viewers. Does Nathan MacKinnon have anything left to do to assume that number one spot in the history of the franchise as the greatest player to ever don an Avalanche sweater? I personally would entertain and listen to an argument that maybe he doesn't, because of how dominant he is, not just as a member of the Colorado Avalanche, but his status and his footing amongst the entire NHL and where he stands, where it's kind of this neck and neck secretariat style race with him and Connor McDavid about who we just decide ultimately is the best player in the league in any given year. And it doesn't feel like there's an incredibly wrong answer no matter which way that you go. I personally am going to say that I think if Nathan MacKinnon wins one more Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe or not, accompanying that, he is the greatest player in Colorado Avalanche history. I have never been one to shy away from the fact that I think he's a better player than Connor McDavid right now. And you can, go back and turn back time and debate Joe Sakic's standing within the entire league. And, who he played, Steve Yzerman, plenty of players in Joe Sakic's era that were dominant forces as well. So, yeah, for me, I think the question of is Nathan MacKinnon already the greatest player in Colorado Avalanche history is a valid conversation or question to pose. And I think that even if you fall in the camp that I fall in, that he probably needs one more cup before he retires as a member of the Avalanche, and accompanied with the fact that he's now the all-time points gatherer in an Avalanche sweater and is going to continue to build on that to a point where we may never see another player touch that record or broach it for a significant length of time. And he's got an MVP and a Ted Lindsay and all the other accolades in his trophy case. That's about the only box left to check. Now, it's a big one. And I was on the show earlier this week saying I think we've got a legitimate chance here in Denver this coming summer of 2026 to have two parades downtown near the Civic Center with the Nuggets and the Avalanche. So it could be a conversation that ends as early as this year. But the bottom line is, even if you think there is only one box left to check, albeit a significant one, the conversation is valid. And I can't wait to see how it shakes out. Shifting gears to the Denver Broncos, who now have, as a result of the statement, signature win in the Sean Payton Bo Nix era over the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, a tough decision to make along their offensive line, which up to this point has been a significant boost in the run game, allowing the Broncos to have a top 10 and top 5 now, I believe, rushing offense in the NFL. J.K. Dobbins spearheading that with R.J. Harvey coming behind. But both of those guys having the road in front of them paved by a road-grading offensive line. And now with Ben Powers, who suffered a bicep injury late in the fourth quarter in Philadelphia in the win over the Eagles, expected to miss significant time, going on IR with a hopeful return in December. Sean Payton and company are going to have to figure out who's going to replace him. And that's a more interesting question on the surface than it may seem, because the Broncos don't truly have a legitimate, solidified backup guard. All of their backup offensive linemen who would fill that slot play other spots on the offensive line by trade. You've got two centers in your starting center in Luton Wattenberg, who can play guard, and Alex Forsythe, who obviously infamously didn't die slowly enough in Kansas City at Arrowhead last year to help give the Chiefs their first loss of the season. And then you've got a collection of offensive tackles in your swing tackle, Alex Palcho, who's gaining notoriety and kind of fan lore with, becoming an eligible player. And every time he gets declared by the referee, number 63 is eligible, the crowd kind of rumbles. So you got Palcho, you got Matt Pert, and you got Frank Crum, all natural tackles by trade. They don't have an offensive guard specifically that can just step in and fill that spot for Ben Powers for at least a couple of months or so. And we'll see how the recovery process tracks, because he did have surgery, I believe, yesterday, and is beginning that recovery starting this week. Obviously did not travel with the team to London as they prepare to take on the Jets at Tottenham Hotspur. I think the interior offensive line sometimes gets overlooked about A, its importance, B, its flexibility, and the impact it can have on an offense in the run and the passing game. And I don't want to overstate it, but I also don't want to understate it either, because I think Ben Powers has been effective in the run game and pass blocking as an offensive line. I think they've been better than maybe they've gotten credit for at times, especially when you start looking at the rough offensive line situations at other spots around the NFL. So I don't want to understate this either. And I think the easy answer is Alex Palcheski steps into that role. And yes, you lose a valuable swing tackle, but he is your best depth offensive line piece, in my opinion. And I think that even though he's a natural tackle by trade, I would trust in his versatility as a player and his just overall skill that he's been able to show for a number of years now here in Denver to be able to help steady things, hold down the fort until Ben Powers is able to return, and then they can get back to doing the things that they've been doing through 5 weeks of this NFL season. When asked about it, Sean Payton was kind of non-committal. He said it's next man up, and I'm not going to, he didn't get into whether it's Pert or Crum or Palcho, or if they were going to move Alex Forsythe potentially into that role. He said it's next man up, and that's the truth. That's the reality of the NFL. Any former player on our station or otherwise will tell you the same. But the success or failure of that next man up to hold down the fort for Ben Powers could have a significant impact or a noticeable change in the way this Broncos offense presents itself, the complexity that they are able to showcase. And we know Sean Payton loves a lot of his different looks and different personnel groupings to diversify his offensive attack. So there's a lot of pressure and weight that I don't want to understate on this decision. And I think it starts this weekend in London, and we will see if it's able to buoy and hold down the fort until maybe the first week of December, maybe closer to Christmas with that pivotal showdown with the Chiefs. And with a team that has such little margin for error, this move and this decision is actually going to catch my eye as much as any change that they've made, going into week 1 to present. Going to be a lot to keep track on. Can't wait to tab it all for you. Keep it locked, as I always tell you, and will continue to tell you at the end of every show. Stay locked into Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan, on the air from 6A to 7P every day. Nobody does sports talk radio and sports content better than we do at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. I promise you, the numbers reflect it digitally, over the air, on social media, specifically YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. It's the most comprehensive, detailed, and voluminous coverage that you will find of your local teams, college and the pros, anywhere in the state. DenverSports.com with the likes of Will Peterson, Jake Shapiro, Andrew Mason, our senior Broncos writer, Cecil Lammy, the one and only James Marilat, and Trent Finnegan, the underboss at DenverSports.com, who really kind of runs things and pulls puppeteer strings behind the scenes with the amount of content that he is able to provide digitally for you. On the air with our lineup that is second to none, with Schlereth and Stokely and Mike Evans and Dover and Cecil in the midday, Zach By and Philip Lindsay in the afternoons. And then on social media channels like YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I almost said Twitter because I don't even consider Twitter and X the same thing. But live shows like this one, The Rundown, the newest one, formerly Denver Sports Daily, now the new show with Joey Gunner and Trent Finnegan in the mornings at 9 a.m. And then, of course, the crown jewel, the staple, Orange and Blue Today with Andrew Mason and Cecil Lammey, weekday afternoons at 5 o'clock for you. Like and subscribe, follow, consume, read, watch, listen, do it all with us here at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan, because you're the reason we do it. If we didn't love and crave and have passion for the interaction with you, the listener, the subscriber, the viewer, the fan, we wouldn't do it. But we do it because we love it and we love you. So with that, we will sign off for today, and we'll catch you at noon for tomorrow's Rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.